Good morning, guys, and I'd like to welcome you to another discussion about auditing and assurance principles. Now, this time we'll discuss about the accountancy law. Now, this is the very law that actually regulates our profession. Okay, this is the Public Act number 9298, May 13, 2004, or the Accountancy Law of 2004. So this is an act regulating the practice of accountancy in the Philippines, repealing for the purpose Presidential Decree 692, otherwise known as the Revised Accountancy Law, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. This act shall be known as the Philippine Accountancy Act of 2004. So prior to this was Presidential Decree 692. Yun ang aking inabutan. So, what are the objectives of this accountancy law? Number one, standardization and regulation of accounting education, examination and registration of certified public accountants, and supervision, control, and regulation of the practice of accountancy in the Philippines. Okay, so as you would see in the objectives of the accountancy law, that it covers the regulation of accounting education, the examination and registration of candidates or those who pass the licensure examination, and of course supervision, control, and the regulation of our practice. But what is the scope of practice when you speak of practice of accountancy? You will notice in the next slides that the four areas of practice are covered by this accountancy law. Number one is the practice of public accountancy. Now, this shall constitute a person, be it his or her individual capacity or as a staff member in an accounting or auditing firm, holding out himself or herself as one skilled in the knowledge, science, and practice of accounting, and as a qualified person to render professional services as a certified public accountant, or offering or rendering or both or more than one client on a fee basis or otherwise services such as the audit or verification of financial transaction and accounting records, or the preparation, signing, or certification for clients of reports of audit, balance sheet, and other financial accounting related schedules, exhibits, statements of reports, which are to be used for publication or for credit purposes, or to be filed with a court or government agency, or to be used for any other purposes, or to design, installation, and revision of accounting system, or the preparation of income tax returns when related to accounting procedures, or when he or she represent clients before government agencies on tax and other matters relating to accounting, or render professional assistance in matter relating to accounting procedures and recording and presentation of financial facts or data. So public practice actually are those that are employed, okay, or employed by big accounting firms, like big and small accounting firms. Like say for example SGV, you have Pulumbayan, then Deloitte of course, and of course my practice, AEG and company. So we are rendering professional services to clients, more than one clients actually, and this provision already specified what are the services that we can render to our clients, and those services are actually on a fee basis, okay? And that includes of course the audit or the verification of financial transaction. Audit is really to verify whether the company has support for transactions, and of course if the transactions were treated accurately in the financial statements. So that also includes the preparation and signing of the certification. Now, certification, this actually refers to the auditor's report, which is being attached to the financial statements of our audit clients, okay? And why do they need to get their statements audited? Well, because financial reports are representations of management, and in order to enhance the credibility of management and the financial statements, they need someone that is outside or or outside the organization, or no relationship with key personnel of management, okay, who will say that the financial statements are reliable and are prepared in conformity with a specific standard. Now, only with that certification can other parties, interested users of financial statements, can rely on the financial statements published by the company. Okay. Now, what are the other services mentioned here? Design, installation, and revision of accounting system. Okay. So these are the services of an accounting firm. Okay. Preparation of income tax returns. That can also be offered to our clients. And of course, whenever the client has problems with the BIR or the Bureau of Internal Revenue, we can always assist our clients in clearing up some matters with the BIR. Okay. The next is practice in commerce and industry. Shall constitute in a person involved in decision making requiring professional knowledge in the science of accounting, or when such employment or position requires that the holder thereof must be a certified public accountant. So CPAs in commerce and industry are those CPAs who are hired by private companies to work as accountant, chief accountant, accounting manager, controller, treasurer, and eventually the highest position is the chief finance officer or the CFO. Okay, so those working with companies like Colgate Palmolive, Nestle, even banks like East West Bank, all other private companies. Okay, so those in the public practice are the sector is Association of CPAs in Public Practice or ACPAP, while those in commerce and industry, the sector is Association of CPAs in Commerce and Industry or ACPAC. Now, practice in education or academe should constitute in a person in an educational institution which involve teaching of accounting, auditing, management advisory services, that's finance, business law, taxation, and other technically related subjects, provided that members of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines may be allowed to teach business law and taxation subjects. Okay, so people in the academe are your professors, like me, for instance. I'm teaching accounting. I'm also teaching tax now, and I'm also teaching auditing. Okay, so we are the CPAs involved in the academe. We are here to teach. Okay, next is of course practice in the government. Okay, so shall constitute in a person who holds or is appointed to a position in an accounting professional group in government or in a government owned or controlled corporation. Okay, so we have CPAs working in the government, like in the different offices, okay, of the government, and even those government owned and controlled corporations, okay, even different government agencies like the BIR. We have the examiners, okay, and then of course the DBM. They occupy positions like accountant, accounting manager, even government controlled like Land Bank of the Philippines, okay. What else? BSP and all others. Okay, so if you would notice, the practice of accountancy includes all the four sectors. Okay, we have the Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy. Now, this is what we call the Board of Accountancy. Now, first and foremost, we have to know who composed the Board of Accountancy. Okay, so the board should be composed of a chairman and 6 members. Okay, so there should be 6 members and a chairman. So all in all, they should be at least they should be 7, and they need to be appointed by the President of the Philippines from a list of 3 recommendees for each position, and ranked by the Commission from a list of 5 nominees. Anyway, so all of them are accredited national professional organization of certified public accountants. Okay, the board shall elect a vice chairman from among each member with a term of 1 year. Okay, so the Board of Accountancy comprised of 7, 1 chairman, and of course the 6 members of the board. Okay, and they shall be appointed by the President of the Philippines. And of course, from the 6 members, they will have to elect, or from the members, they will have to elect a vice chairman that will serve for a term of 1 year. Now, what are the qualifications? Just in case you'd like to be, a member of the Board of Accountancy in the future, what are the qualifications of required to be a member of the board? Now, number 1, you must be a natural-born citizen and a resident of the Philippines. So you must be residing in the Philippines and natural-born here. Must be a duly registered certified public accountant with at least 10 years of work experience in any scope of practice of accountancy. So even say, for example, you are in commerce and industry, in the academe, okay, whatever line of practice, as long as it is within the scope of the accountancy and you've been working for at least 10 years. Must be a good moral character and must not have been convicted of crimes involving moral turpitude. Okay, so moral turpitude is very important, no, na wala kang kaso. And must not have any pecuniary interest, directly or indirectly, in any school, college, university, or institution, conferring an academic degree necessary for admission to the practice of accountancy, or where review classes in preparation for the licensure examination are being offered or conducted. Nor shall he or she be a member of the faculty or administration thereof at the time of his or her appointment to the board. Now, what is the reason why we have to observe this last one? Well, because you know, part of the Board of Accountancy's function is to administer the examination of aspiring CPAs. That's why he should not have any conflict of interest, and being a member of a school or an institution offering degrees that would qualify the graduates to sit in the CPA licensure examination. There is a cloud of doubt as to the independence of the member of the board. So if ever he's appointed, he has to give up his position even before the appointment. Okay. Now, what about the term of office? Okay, the chairman and members of the board shall hold office for a term of 3 years. Okay, so 3 years ang term nila. Now, what if there are vacancies within the term of the member? Okay, so it shall be filled up for the unexpired portion of the term. Okay, so if ever there's, say for example, resignation or whatever that led to the resignation of any members of the board, the one who will replace shall serve only the remaining term of the board. No person shall who has served 2 successive complete terms shall be eligible for reappointment until the lapse of 1 year. So they can be appointed for 2 terms, but after that they have to have a cooling off period, so to speak, of 1 year. Okay. Powers and functions of the board. Number 1, to prescribe and adopt the rules and regulations necessary to carrying out the provisions of this act. To supervise the registration, licensure, and practice of accountancy in the Philippines. Okay? So registration, licensure, and practice. Administer oaths in connection with the administration of this act. Issue, suspend, revoke, reinstate the certificate of registration for the practice of accountancy profession. To adopt an official seal of the board, to prescribe and to adopt a code of ethics for the practice of accountancy. So in this slide, it's said that the board has the right to issue the certificate of registration, and they also have the right to suspend or revoke the certificate of registration of any CPA who will be found guilty of acts that is not permitted by our profession. Okay. So the certificate of registration can be suspended or revoked, but it can also be reinstated. When can it be reinstated? We will know in the subsequent slides. Next, monitor the conditions affecting the practice of accountancy and adopt such measures, including promulgation of accounting and auditing standards. That's why in the FRSC, which is a standard setting body of in the Philippines, one of the representatives is coming from the Board of Accountancy. Rules and regulations and best practices as may be deemed proper for the enhancement and maintenance of high professional, ethical accounting and auditing standards. That domestic accounting and auditing standard rules and regulations shall include the international accounting and auditing standards and generally accepted best practices. To conduct an oversight into the quality of audits of financial statements. Okay, so this is again another function of BOA, that is to ensure that audits of financial statements conducted by accounting firms, okay, has quality. So they are adopting this quality control measures. Now, in the past, there was a move to have this quality, the quality assurance review, or the QAR. I think there was there used to be a moratorium for the individual practitioners, but I think it's also lifted. But we are in a pandemic, so I don't think they're doing this for now. Okay. to investigate violations of these acts and rules and regulations promulgated hereunder, and for the purpose to issue summons, subpoena, and subpoena ad testificandum and subpoena duces tecum to violators or witnesses thereof. Anyway, so you can read through that, okay, to investigate and of course the violations of the act. The board may, at its discretion, such investigations as it deems necessary to determine whether any person has violated any provisions of this law, any accounting or auditing standards or rules duly promulgated by the board as part of the rules governing the practice of accountancy. So if you know someone, a colleague for example in the future, okay, future colleague of yours who may have violated the accountancy law, you can report it to BOA. Okay, that's one of the functions of BOA. To issue a cease or desist order to any person, associations, partnership, or corporation engaged in violation of any provisions of this act, any accounting or auditing standards or rules of duly promulgated by the board as part of the rules governing the practice of accountancy in the Philippines. To punish for contempt of the board, both direct and indirect, in accordance with the pertinent provision of and penalties prescribed by the rules of court. To prepare, adopt, issue, or amend the syllabi of the subjects of for examination in consultation with the academe, determine and prepare questions for the licensure examination which shall strictly be within the scope of the syllabi of the subjects for examination, as well as administer, correct, and release the result of the licensure examination. So in this slide, we noted that it's part of the board's function to administer. Okay, administer the examination, of course, to prepare and amend the syllabi of the subjects that are included in the CPA board examination. And we had that revision currently, and we'll discuss that. Later on. Okay. So even the syllabi of the subjects that are covered by the board examination, and of course to ensure that the examinations or the questions in examinations are within the scope of the syllabi. To ensure the coordination with the Commission of the Higher Education or other authorized government offices, that all higher educational instruction and offering of accountancy comply with the policy, standards, and requirements of the course prescribed by the CHED. Okay, so the CHED still the one governing the accounting education, in terms of whatever of higher education in the Philippines. So we still have to abide by the CHED provisions. Now, what are the grounds for supervision or removal of the board members of the board? Okay, number one, neglect of duty or incompetence. Okay, so if you'd like to be appointed as member of the Board of Accountancy, you have to ensure that you are competent, okay, that you know the rules, you know the standards, okay. Violation or tolerance of any violation of this act and its implementation, rules and regulation of the Certified Public Accountants Code of Ethics and the technical and professional standards of practice for certified public accountants. So if any one of them will violate, okay, or tolerate any violation that they probably would come across with, that could also be a ground for suspension. Final judgment of crimes involving moral turpitude. Note that there's still the moral turpitude, and of course manipulation or rigging of the certified public accountants licensure examination results. Okay, so pagka na-manipulate yung result, then if that can be proven, then that could be a ground for removal of a member of the board. Okay, next, licensure examination, registration, and of course the licensure. Now, what are the qualifications of those who would like to take the SIPALE? So any person applying for examination should establish the following requisites to the satisfaction of the board. Number one, that you have to be a Filipino citizen. Okay, so I think the birth certificate is a must. Okay, good moral character, that's why you need to secure the certificate of good moral from the school. Holder of the degree of Bachelor of Science in Accountancy conferred by the school, college, academy, or institute duly recognized and or accredited by the CHED or other authorized government offices, and has not been convicted of any criminal offense involving moral turpitude. Okay, so certificate of good moral character that would come from the school, and of course you should be a holder of Bachelor of Science in Accountancy. Okay, so those that are under the old curriculum, that's Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. I think they have an issue with regard to, if they would like to retake the board examination. Okay, because it is very clear in the Accountancy Act that only those with BSA degree will be allowed to take the board. Now, scope of examination. Okay, so these are the subjects that are included in the examination of for the CIPALE. So you have theory of accounts, business law and taxation, management services, auditing theory, auditing problems, practical accounting problems 1 and 2. Now, although as I said earlier, there are some amendments already made in the scope of examination. It used to be 7 subjects. Now, you only have to pass 6 subjects, okay? Because they have already combined the theory of accounts with the practical accounting problems 1. The auditing theory and auditing problems were also combined, but business law and taxation were 2 different subjects now. So you have to take law and you have to take taxation as well separately. Okay, how do you pass the CPA board examination? For you to be considered as a CPA, you must obtain a general weighted average of 75% with no grade lower than 65% in any given subject. So watch out for that. Okay, 75 with no grade lower than 65. Okay. In the event a candidate obtains a rating of 75 and above in at least a majority of the subject as provided in this act, he or she shall receive a conditional credit for the subject's pass. Okay, so if you say, for example, you were able to pass the majority of the subject, and there's only 1 or 2 subjects that you have a less than 65 rating, then you are considered a conditional passer. Okay, you have to again take the subjects that were below 65. Okay, now until when can you take the 2 subjects? You have 2 years. Okay, you have 2 years to take the remaining subjects or the subject that you didn't pass. Okay. Now, what if you failed in those subjects? Then you have to take the whole examination again. Okay. So if say for example you'll be given a conditional rating, you have to ensure that you really will pass the remaining subjects. Otherwise, it's a waste of time for you because you have to take it over again. Okay. Report of rating. Okay, the board shall submit to the commission the rating obtained by each candidate within 10 calendar days. So right after examination, within 10 days, the board has to submit to the PRC. Okay, within 10 days the result of the examination. Okay, and it should be the PRC who will be sending it out through mail to the candidates or to those who took the board examinations. Now, failing candidates. So any candidate who fails in 2 complete certified public accountant board examination shall be disqualified. So if you have failed 2 times, you shall be disqualified from taking it again unless you will be able to present to the commission that you have satisfactorily completed a 24-unit course, refresher course, from an educational institution. Okay. Okay, a certificate of registration shall be issued to you once you pass the licensure examination subject to payment of the fees prescribed by the commission. The certificate of once you pass the CPA board examination, aside from the PRC ID that you will be given, okay, you will also receive the certificate of registration, okay, which shall bear the signature of the chairperson of the commission and the chairman and the members of the board, stamped with the official seal of the commission and the board, indicating that the person named therein is entitled to the practice of the profession with all the privileges pertinent thereto. Now, it shall be in force, in full force and effect until withdrawn, superseded, suspended, or revoked in accordance with the Act. Okay, and it is professional identification card. This is what I'm saying. Aside from the certificate of registration, you will be issued a identification card. Okay. bearing the registration number date, it's the registration number, the date of issuance, expiry date, should be signed by the chairperson of the commission, shall likewise be issued to every registrant, and this is renewable every 3 years. Now, how can you renew your identification card? You can renew it by ensuring that you have attended a certain number of units for continuing professional education. Okay, is it necessary? Yes, because our practice is very dynamic. In the past years, you have seen new standards, okay, and then we don't know what will happen in the future, so we have to be abreast on the whatever developments are happening in our profession. Indication of certificate of registration, identification card, and professional tax receipt. Certified public accountant shall be required to indicate his or her personal certificate of registration number, the date of issuance, duration of validity, including the professional tax receipt number, on the documents he or she signs, uses, or issues in connection with the practice of his or her profession. So, especially if you are in the public practice or public practice of accountancy as an external auditor, it is mandated that you indicate all of those. Okay, your certificate number, the validity of the certificate number, and of course, once you pass the CPA board examination, you need to get your PTR every year. Okay, don't forget that, guys. You need to get the PTR every year, because every year you have to indicate that in the auditor's report. So if the number doesn't change from one year to another, that simply means that you're not renewing, you're not getting a new PTR. Okay. Suspension and revocation of certificate of registration and professional identification card, and cancellation of special permit. Okay, the board shall have the power upon the notice and hearing to suspend or revoke the practitioner's certificate of registration and professional identification card, or suspend his or her from the practice of his or her profession, or cancel his or her special permit for any of the causes or grounds mentioned under Section 23 of the Act, or any of the provisions of this Act and implementing rules and regulation, the Certified Public Accountants Code of Ethics, and the Technical and Professional Standards of Practice for Certified Public Accountants. Okay? So as I mentioned, once you pass the CPA board examination, that is not the end. Okay? For you to be able to continue being a CPA and to practice the profession that we are in, you have to ensure that you abide by the rules and regulations of our profession, the Accountancy Act, of course, and our Code of Ethics. Okay? You have to ensure that you abide by those. Okay? Reinstatement. Okay? So once assuming that your certificate was revoked by the commission, can you request for a reinstatement? Yes, of course. Okay? The board may, after the expiration of 2 years from the date of revocation of a certificate of registration, and upon application and for reasons deemed proper and sufficient, reinstate the validity of a revoked certificate of registration. Okay? And in doing so, may in its discretion exempt the applicant from taking another examination. Kaya, kinakailangan, no? You have to ensure that you abide by all the rules of the accountancy profession. Otherwise, you might be asked by the board to take again the examination for SIPALE. What if you don't pass the second time? Okay? So any new certificate of registration to replace lost, destroyed, or mutilated certificates license may be issued subject to the rules and promulgated by the board and the commission upon the payment of the required fees. Now, I've lost my certificate of registration that was originally issued to me. That's why I applied for another certificate of registration at the PRC last year. Okay, so you can still be given a duplicate copy of your certificate of registration once you applied for it at the PRC, paying the corresponding fees. Okay, limitation of the practice of public accountancy. Single practitioners and partnerships for the practice of public accountancy shall be registered certified public accountants in the Philippines. Okay, what does it mean? If you would like to practice public accountancy, you are allowed to do so under two forms, either a single practitioner or as a partnership. So corporation is not mentioned as of now. So meaning corporate form for the practice of accountancy is not allowed for now. Okay? provided that from the effectivity of this act, a certificate of accreditation shall be issued to the certified public accountant in public practice, showing only upon showing in accordance with the rules and regulations promulgated by the board and approved by the commission that such a registrant has acquired a minimum of 3 years meaningful experience in any areas of public practice, including taxation. So before you can be accredited by the board, before you can practice in public accountancy, you have to be accredited by the board. Now, before you can be accredited by the board, you have to have at least 3 years of meaningful experience, no? Meaningful experience in any areas of public practice. What are the areas? The one I mentioned earlier, like preparation of tax returns of your client, compilation, okay? Provided further that this requirement shall not apply to those already granted a certificate of accreditation prior to the effectivity of this act. Okay, so those that were accredited prior to 2004 were no longer required to have that 3-year experience. Now, ownership of working papers. So, in public practice, we document our field work, our gathering of evidences, okay, through what we call the working papers. So once we have done that, the question is, who owns the working papers? So all working papers, schedules, and memoranda made by the certified public accountant and his staff in the course of an examination, including those prepared and submitted by the client, incident to or in the course of an examination by such certified public accountant, except reports submitted by a certified public accountant to a client, shall be treated confidential and privileged and remain the property of such CPA in the absence of a written agreement between the certified public accountant and the client to the contrary. Okay, so it remains the property of the CPA. The working papers prepared by the CPA together with the analysis and schedules prepared by the client for the purpose of the audit shall remain the property of the CPA unless there is an agreement between the CPA and the client that such will not be the case. Okay. Now, the working papers can be produced through subpoena issued by any court, such as, say, for example, there's an issue with the client that they need to refer to the work papers of the auditor. The work papers can be subpoenaed by the competent court, and if that will be the case, then the auditor shall have no recourse but to really show the work papers. Okay. Accreditation to practice public accountancy. Certified public accountants, firms, and partnerships of certified public accountants engaged in the practice of public accountancy, including partners and staff members thereof, shall register with the Commission and the Board. Such registration shall be renewed every 3 years, provided that, subject to the approval of the Commission, the Board shall promulgate rules and regulations for the implementation of registration requirements, including fees and penalties for violation thereof. So, members of the firm, from staff to the partner, shall be registered with the board, okay, and then of course the registration is renewable every 3 years. Continuing professional education. Now, as accountants, we have seen our profession as a dynamic one since 2005 when we adopted the PFRS. Okay, now since then we have been flooded with different standards, okay, and the aim of that, of course, is to improve the practice, okay, the practice of accountancy. Okay? So we need to be updated, not only the standards actually, but also the tax rules and regulations also change, right? Before, there's a different tax rates, and then came another, some amendments during the time of Commissioner Henares. And then, of course, we have now the trade law. So we have to be abreast with all of those developments. Otherwise, our client might be, penalized by the government if we are not aware of any of those changes. Okay, so if you're in public practice, it is a must that you have to update yourself every now and then. Seal and use of seal. Okay, so if you are in the public practice, you need to have your own seal. Now, this is also for your protection because, you can identify if the document is true and if the document is original and that really belongs to, and that is really issued by you through this official seal of yours. Okay, so yun. So it has to bear your name, your registration number, and title. Okay, the auditor's report shall be stamped with said seal. So whenever I sign, I stamp my seal on the pages of the auditor's report. Okay, before it is filed with the government agencies. Foreign reciprocity. Okay, what does it mean? Now, what if, for instance, a foreigner from a CPA from Canada would like to practice his profession in the Philippines? Can he do that? Okay, subject or citizen of foreign countries may be allowed to practice accountancy in the Philippines in accordance with the provisions of existing law, international treaty obligations, including mutual recognition agreement entered into by the Philippine government with other countries. A person who is not a citizen of the Philippines shall not be allowed to practice accountancy in the Philippines unless he or she can prove that can prove in the manner provided by the rules of court that specific provision of the law, country of which he or she is a resident, subject, or national admits citizen of the Philippines to the practice of the same profession without restriction. So it is a must that the foreigner who would like to practice accountancy in the Philippines must be able to show proof that his country is allowing CPAs from the Philippines to also practice the profession in their country without any restriction. Okay, coverage of temporary special permit. Special temporary permit may be issued by the board subject to the approval of the commission and payment of fees. The latter has prescribed and charged thereof the following person: a foreign certified public accountant called for consultation or for specific purpose which in the judgment of the board is essential for the development of the country, provided that his or her practice shall be limited only for the particular work that he or she being engaged. Provided further that there is no Filipino certified public accountant qualified for such consultation or specific purposes. Okay, so only if it is a must that the foreign national or the foreign CPA must be here in the Philippines and practice, okay, for consultation purposes, and of course they have to be able to show that there's no other Filipino CPA who can do the job. Okay, but knowing our the Filipino CPAs, we have CPAs who are doctors of philosophy, and I don't think this would work until now. Okay, foreign certified public accountant engaged as professor, lecturer, or critic in fields essential to accountancy education in the Philippines, and this or her engagement is confined to teaching only. And then a foreign certified public accountant who is an internationally recognized expert, or with specialization in any branch of accountancy, and his or her service is essential for the advancement of accountancy in the Philippines. Next, okay, penal code. So what if someone violates any of the provisions of this act? So any person who shall violate any of the provisions, okay, shall be subject to the approval of the, okay, shall upon conviction be punished by a fine of not less than 50,000 pesos or by imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years or both. So you can be subject to, you can be asked to pay the fine of 50,000 pesos and of course be behind bars for a period not exceeding 2 years. Okay, so that's the accountancy law of the Philippines. I hope I was able to impart to you some knowledge about our accountancy law. Okay, as I mentioned, this is accountancy law of 2004, so this has been in effect for 16 years. Now we know that a lot of changes has happened, and we are a dynamic profession, so I'm not sure, but I think we can expect some improvements or some improvements or amendments in this accountancy code to, of course, align our practice with the times. Okay, especially now that we are in a pandemic situation. We don't know, we have to again wait, and we are in a wait and see situation, because I know that there's they're lobbying to have a revised or amended accountancy law. Okay, let's just keep our fingers crossed and we'll see. Okay, now with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me in this session, and I hope to see you again in the future discussions. Okay, bye. This is again your Prof. Zeus signing off. Bye.